Hey friends, Ebony here. I know how so many of you have asked me about, hey, how are you always so energetic? Why do you always have all the energy? And I'm over here trying to figure out what day it is. Did I sleep? What's going on? So, today, what I want to do is start with fighting fatigue through your diet. Now, so many people say that it's very important to have a good diet, to do all the things, but they kind of don't tell you what to do. And it's confusing. Raise your hand if that's you, because it's definitely me, two hands up. But I thought, okay, if I can just be diligent about it and actually recognize when the things that I'm eating are actually doing more harm than good, maybe I might be onto something. So I tried it. You get to a point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And that's where I was. Even though I had been doing really well, I fell off the bandwagon. I wasn't being dedicated with actually eating like I was supposed to. And I got lazy. And then next thing you know, my diet was trash. And I don't really know how that happened. So here are the steps that I took in order to actually get to a point where I am right now. And I try really hard to eat clean. I try really hard to do all the things, but sometimes I allow myself a treat because I'm human. And I've really practiced portion control. I've really practiced eating the rainbow, and I do what works for my body. There's so many diets out there. There's so many ways to eat. And I'm not going to say you need to do this, this, and this, but I'm going to give you some guidelines and tips. So, first things first, let's talk about that whole I'm tired. I can barely get out of bed. Sometimes when I go to bed at night, I think I'm tired, but then I end up planning a vacation. I grocery shop, I do the dishes, I wash clothes, and everything else. And next thing I know, it's 5 o'clock in the morning and I didn't really sleep. Yeah. Or you're in that meeting or class, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't remember the last 15 minutes of what just happened. And I don't really know if I fell asleep or not. Mm, yeah, is that you? Because it's happened to me a lot. So, this is what I did. I wrote down what I ate for a week. Now, you may be saying, girl, I don't have time for that. I can't do that. I'm too busy. And I thought the same thing too. But guess what? Would you rather be too busy to figure out what's going on with you and stay tired and fatigued and cranky all the time? Or would you rather take that, I don't know, 2 to 5 minutes to write down what you're eating? So I wrote down what I ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 7 days. I realized I was eating a bunch of junk, a lot of junk actually, and it wasn't good. And even with exercising, if your diet is junk, you're still gonna feel bad. And that whole, well, I exercise so I can do whatever I want, not really. Because for me, everything starts in the kitchen. So the better I eat, the better I feel, the more I see results from anything that I'm doing, and the more I can actually concentrate. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, write down what you ate, write down your snacks, write down, that scoop of ice cream that you had that you're like, that doesn't count. It does. You bit into it, write it down. You licked it, write it down. If you tasted it, write it down. And this is going to help you become very conscious of what you're doing. If you take any kind of medication, I want you to write down and pay attention to A, the medications that you're taking, and B, what you're eating around the time when you take your meds. Because, for example, I can't have calcium rich or vitamin D rich foods 4 to 6 hours during the time when I just took my medication. So I need to wait about 4 to 6 hours. So that can also have an impact on how you feel. And I noticed it last week, for example. I had almond milk in my overnight oats and I was extremely tired and I couldn't figure out why. And then I went back and I said, oops, My bad. That was a mistake. So little stuff like that can really wreak havoc on what you're really trying to do in terms of make sure that you actually feel good. The other thing about your diet is pay attention to those sweets, to those treats. Anything that is really processed, think candy, look at the sweeteners that you're putting in your coffee and your tea, because a lot of times those things have a lot of sugar in it. Start looking at that granola, the yogurt. All of that stuff has so much sugar in it. And of course, you're going to feel like, oh, I have a lot of energy, but then you crash and you crash hard. So, really think about balancing your meals and making sure that you don't have a lot of sugary stuff, and add your fats, add your protein, so that that can kind of balance that carb load or the extra sugar that you're taking in. If you're someone that has issues with diabetes or high blood sugar, definitely pay attention to those things, because you really and truly can actually manage your condition when you start to pay a little bit more attention. And I didn't realize this until I started doing the very things I'm telling you to do. And when I went to the doctor and they were like, "Yep, you're doing this to yourself. But I'm glad you recognized it. Here's how we're going to move forward." And once you start looking at what you've eaten and what you've consumed, just take a step back. Do not beat yourself up here. Give yourself grace, because you're doing what you need to do in order to finally feel better. And that is something that should be celebrated. So hats off to you for taking that next step. And what I started to do is, instead of just saying, oh, I'm just going to go cold turkey, I'm going to stop eating all the junk. Don't do that. You are instantly setting yourself up for failure. Instead, think about taking things away bit by bit. So, for example, if you're not a person that eats a lot of vegetables, or you don't like fruit, or you have allergies or what have you, naturally, don't eat stuff that you're going to have a reaction to. So there's that. But start taking one thing away at a time. So for example, if you eat out every day, perhaps try to prepare one meal a week, so that perhaps when you have leftovers, you don't have to eat out for whatever meal that you typically eat out for. Or think about perhaps maybe having a meal delivery service and trying that out if you think that you don't have a lot of time. But the key that I found is I actually wrote down my schedule for the day. I looked at my calendar and I tried to understand, where are those moments where I have a lot going on, and when do I have some time that, I can meal prep. So I literally started 5 o'clock in the morning to midnight. And I wrote out everything from when I wake up, when I go to work, how long I work, how long my commute is, and then once I'm home, how long do I have before I actually go to bed or attempt to go to bed. So that way you can actually see over time where those little pockets are that you have opportunities to maybe prep a meal or get some snacks together, and healthy snacks. You will know what you can and can't have. And I'm also going to give you a link to all of my Pinterest boards, because sharing is caring. So that way you don't have to think about it. And it just makes you feel so much better once you've actually started doing things that really and truly make a difference. And as soon as I started doing this, I literally felt so much better. And I actually got out of bed. Like, think about that. Without issue, without worrying about it, and without dreading it. So that is what I challenge you to do. Take 7 days to look at your diet, examine where you have opportunities to do better, and then start on it a little bit at a time.